What we got next here is the employer package. We talked about this briefly in our last session, but so we won't kind of go into detail in regards to the phase 1 through phase 2 because we've had lots of discussion around that. But you do get 2 copies of the CECL agreement. That again, remind you, please make sure you read the direct deposit form, samples of the financial statement, and a budget. So, we're going to try to look at the financial statement component because that's a new component, the budget, and the direct deposit forms, and the contract we've gone over in previous sessions. And through the client support group side of things, the addition would be the how to developers of society, right? And so there would be the society, list of directors, the bylaws, those kinds of things will be in it as well. Should mention that the package also contains other specific kinds of questions. They do want to, for example, the time task analysis, which we've gone through, that you may need to fill out, which is going through what your care needs are, and we've gone through that through developing your support plan. There's also a list of questions that you need to answer to find out if you're actually ready to go on to the CECL program. We're going to, in another session, be able to go through that with you a little bit more so you can be prepared to look at those questions.
Perfect. So those are things that you will be receiving in the mail, or does someone?
So it comes in the, sometimes the case manager will drop it off to you directly once you've been approved. Okay. Other times it may come in the mail. It is a large document. I think it's about 60 pages long. Right. But again, we've kind of broken down those sections really over these sessions. But it gives you all of the necessary information, including, the expense guidelines and all that kind of stuff.
Any of the stuff is any of it emailed to you, of course?
You can request it to be emailed. Health authorities don't do a lot of emailing these days due to privacy reasons and stuff. But if you're just asking for the generic document, then they shouldn't have a problem sending that to you. Okay. But they don't like to have. But if your name and address and everything's in it, they're liable not to send that to you by email. Okay. All right.
So let's move into the employee package.
So further on into it is like, is your CECL agreement, and we've talked a bit about this, in that package, it will have your contract, and it can be anywhere from a length of 1 to 5 years, Fernando. So, really, it depends where you are in the cycle. In some ways, some do it over a 4-year period, some do it over X number of periods. Some health authorities actually don't have an expiry date anymore. So all this depends on the health authority in regards to this. We are continuing to work on standardizing this throughout the province, and this is one of the areas that we'll be looking at doing. Then it's got the terms of the agreement. So the dollars that you'll be receiving each month is also included within that. So your approved hours, it shows how it's calculated, and basically, really strong statements about what your responsibilities are. Your record keeping, your spending, funds, how you're able to spend the funds, those kinds of things. And when we talk about your responsibilities of an employer, that is where we'll start seeing exactly, and that's where you have to fill out that questionnaire that I talked about earlier that we'll get into in another session. Information on hiring family members is also included in this package as well. And the surplus funding, the allowable amounts, because you're allowed to accumulate up to 1 month surplus of funds, and I think we'll get into that in more detail later as well. The other component I think we should be really aware of is that the health authority waivers all liability.
I was going to ask you about that. So exactly how does that work?
So, basically, once you're a CECL employer, you are able to apply for work safety fee to protect your employees. So if your employees are injured in any way on site, they are protected, and you'll get the necessary compensation for such. but you do take on responsibility as you would if you're running your own business. You take on the liability of your own situation. So if your employee does drop you and you hurt yourself, there is no recourse to go back to the health authority to complain that the person dropped you and that they should pay. The reason for that is you're the one that chose the person. You're the one in control. And, so you are taking on that part of the responsibility. And that's why we talk later so much about the importance of doing good interviews and being able to find the appropriate people.
And that's all part of liability issues, right? I mean, they just don't want to, because the program is funded through the health boards and the health regions, right?
Yeah.
They don't want that sort of lawsuit issue, basically.
Yeah, and I think that's why we see a lot of hands off in regards to, we don't see case managers getting involved in employee-employer issues, right? And nor should they be. They're your employees. They shouldn't really be involved in your employee issues. And if they do that, that's something of major concern for NACO, if they are getting involved with your employees. So, again, because that's your responsibility.
Right. Also, at the beginning of this whole section here is that read it. Don't skip.
Right.
Read it from beginning to the very end and do a thorough job. Be very careful when you're reading it all. You never know when little mistakes happen, right? So
Absolutely.
someone on the other end wrote this, and there are issues sometimes that someone forget something, or they might forget a zero. But you signed on the dotted line, basically. And sometimes the process to go back and have things reevaluated and done is.
Again, ultimately you're responsible, and it's not good enough to say I didn't know, especially if it's in the document. Absolutely, because you did know if you read the document.
Yeah. If you get to sign it.
You have to sign it, exactly. And if you're going to sign it, make sure you read it.
And then you have to return it.
Yes,
So
exactly.
how do you return it?
Again, the case manager may come by to pick it up, and other times you're mailing it in. Most often you're mailing it in. You can also drop it off at your local office if it's close enough to you, or if you've got someone else that can do that for you.
Or so you can actually go to the, it happens to be within one of the hospitals, you can go and drop it off.
Exactly. As long as that's where your case manager is.
Okay.
It's best to get it to your case manager so it gets to the right people and stuff like that, especially at the beginning part.